thank you, London Athenians, for inviting me to come to a club. I'm glad Emil did add in he won at his club level. I thought he was going to leave it hanging because unrealistic expectations that was to follow. I've really enjoyed this evening. It's a very impressive club you have here, and I'll talk more about that later. Your president, Chuck, opened it. He's an imposing fella. He's a big guy, he's dressed impeccably, and he struck a note of gravitas that I think is becoming of a club of this stature. So it was a very good start to the meeting. No one's messing with their phones when Chuck's talking. It's might as well have been Chuck Norris standing at the front. No one was messing around. The only thing I'd say is that if you are that imposing and you dress that sharply, you need to smile a lot so people aren't intimidated by you. We had our chairperson, Emil, come up. Emil did a fantastic job, ran the meeting very well. He was very cool, calm, clear. Everything was in control. I thought he came across extremely well. Perhaps he could have been slightly more excitable and mixed things up a little bit, tried to raise the tempo when spirits are lagging. But on the whole, an excellent chairman and kept the meeting running very well indeed. Our timekeeper of the evening, Ladislav, first ever role at Toastmasters, performed it with aplomb. He obviously prepared, he came up, he had things to say, he had a lovely quote from Mother Teresa, which he delivered with a sort of theatrical flair, which again bodes well for his future Toastmasters career. He had notes, which is understandable, but he should be congratulated on his first step on the Toastmasters pathway. Our grammarian was Ash. Ash, who I liked very well the way that he used pauses, particularly when he first came up. He spoke with gaps, and sometimes we communicate a lot through pauses. And if Ash decides to do a TED lecture, I'd like to suggest the power of pauses. We have it on screen. His body language was equally slow and deliberate, but more powerful for it. He talked about his heart, he talked about his head. In terms of his performance of his role, he was very competent, very good. My only recommendation or suggestion is that I personally like a few criticisms from the grammarian, identifying when we went wrong with our grammar. It's difficult to do, but it's helpful for us. We then had a wonderful table topic session, led by James. James is an immediately likeable fellow when he comes up on stage. He's got a very good karma, fun, told some good jokes, got us laughing, created a wonderful narrative arc throughout the table topic session, but along with keeping that narrative arc, he didn't really give away what the next question was going to be, so people could prepare in advance. So it was a very nice balance between getting that consistency without teeing everyone up. I thought his presence was very good and very likeable, as I say. My only criticism of the body language, and I'm perfectly comfortable with relaxed body language, I'm that way inclined myself, but I think having your hand in your pocket is a bit too relaxed. So equally hand on hip. Fine to have your hands moving around a bit, but my only recommendation. A great start to the table topic session. A great conclusion to that session with Emily giving a very well considered and a sort of masterclass really in what it is to give a table topics evaluation. It's probably the toughest role here at Toastmasters, I think, given the short period of time to do it. Emily used notes, which is totally to be expected, but she used them very well. What was very impressive was the content of her evaluations. To come up with meaningful, useful recommendations at a short period of time is tough. It's easy to fill the time, it's tough to make it sort of helpful to the people. And she did that with very well observed examples. And for example, I particularly like when she talked about Kate McNeely being very careful in her body language and structuring her body language to make her point. I thought, yes, I recognise that. That's a wonderful insight. So it was a tremendous evaluation. Two recommendations. One, I did struggle to hear slightly because the air conditioning was on. And the second was when you're using the lectern, there is a tendency to obviously stand near it, which is required in order to see your notes, but it does make you a little bit static. So perhaps put it slightly further away and sort of try and make use of the space. The second half of the meeting continued in a very fine form. Chris Jolly was our Toastmaster for the second half. Chris is a very competent communicator, someone I know from my own club, as well as from Athenians. He was a very consistent presence up here and performed consistently. The risk with consistency is you might become predictable if people know you well, and what I'll ask Chris to try and bring into his speaking is a bit of spontaneity. And I was wondering, maybe Chris, you could enroll in a improvisation workshop and learn how to bring that spontaneity to your speaking so that people are on the edge of their seat and don't know what's coming next. We had 4 speeches this evening, all of a very high standard. I'm truly very impressed. The first evaluation was Tony, who was evaluating Chris' speech, excellent speech. And he did a very good evaluation. He covered a lot of material, he had a good structure to that evaluation. He had some good recommendations. I like the recommendation to try and engage the audience a little more by trying to make it personal, trying to bring them in a bit. It's difficult to come up with good recommendations for very strong speeches, but I thought he had a couple of very insightful ones. My only recommendation was he was quite far back on the stage. I would suggest perhaps move back and forth as well as elsewhere on the stage, but yeah, a very good evaluation. Our second evaluator was Mahin, who was evaluating Mina. Mahin introduced the idea of sexy mentoring, which I like the idea of sexy mentoring. Bob Nisbet is my mentor, which depends on your tastes. But Mahin also demonstrated what it means to have, I would say, sexy evaluations. Very sort of very involved and quite sort of hot evaluation style. And I've seen that style from Mahin before. So I suppose. To be serious, it was a very, very good evaluation. It covered all the recommendations I had thought when I was watching that very good speech from Nina. I struggled to really come up with any specific recommendations. What I would therefore say is that perhaps, Mahin, you can try doing different forms of evaluation. So move away from your normal approach to doing things and challenge yourself to do things differently, either through a novel structure or from a different sort of persona. Our third evaluation was Neil's, and Neil's was evaluating. Indeed. And again, very strong evaluation, got a lot of material in there, made a lot of recommendations, used the stage exceedingly well, had strong body language, strong presence. I certainly didn't have any trouble hearing Neil's. You project excellently and have a good voice, and I perhaps recommend modulating it a bit more. I think perhaps softening it occasionally for effect, and perhaps changing the pace a little bit, but a strong evaluation and well spoken. Our final evaluator of the evening was Sui Chin, and she was evaluating Sabrina. Sabrina's 10th speech at Content Communicator. Congratulations, Sabrina, brilliant speech. And I have been to Athenians once before. It's the first club I ever visited as a guest, and I actually remember sitting next to Sui Chin at the back, and at that time I thought, wow, she's really impressive. I saw her do a table topics, and it's good tonight to see that wasn't a fluke, and that she's an excellent speaker. I thought that it was a very good evaluation, some really good points, some really good examples of how Sabrina spoke well. My only recommendation was that Sui Chin set out a very strong structure at the beginning, with 3 rhetorical questions, but I wasn't sure if the rest of the evaluation followed that structure. but it probably did. It was just me being easily confused, which is in my nature. For the club, London Athenians, I believe you're celebrating your 20th birthday this year. You are probably one of the best, most established, oldest, most successful clubs in London, and consequently one of the most successful clubs in Europe. And I guess I'm thinking that maybe as a challenge to you in your 20th year, you perhaps think about how Toastmasters as an institution can innovate. Because every institution needs to innovate, even Toastmasters. And I think given the depth that this club has of talent, of gifted Toastmasters and experience, this is a fantastic forum for innovating the Toastmasters model. So I'd be interested to see if you could come up with some novel ideas, perhaps doing some sort of pop-up club meetings in public spaces, or doing a outreach program to a local school, or doing anything innovative so that at the end of the year you can stand up and say, we are London Athenians and we do things no other club in the world does.